to live honestly, positively, and brightly, without lying to myself.
Hi there, I am graphic designer and single mother Julie. Remember to like and subscribe for more before I start telling my tale. Let's now get right on. The kitchen was brilliant in warm, golden light on this sunny morning. It seemed like the ideal celebration day, my daughter Joyce's 8th birthday. I was running about trying to finish all the party setup. Bright balloons and streamers abound in the kitchen, and I wanted everything to be just so for her big day. My little ball of delight, Joyce, was humming with energy. As she watched me, her face turned brilliant with delight. Her eager voice questioned, "Mommy, is the cake going to be here soon?" Trying to seem cool, I said, "Any minute now, sweetie. Grandma Emma is carrying your particular unicorn cake." Inside, though, I became a little concerned. I had so much to do, decorating, arranging the table, and ensuring everything was flawless. To simplify matters, I had asked Emma, Joyce's grandma, to pick up the cake. Though something felt wrong, I trusted her. My phone buzzed as I hung still another strand of balloons. Emma called. "Hey, Emma, is the cake in good shape?" Hoping for positive news, I asked. Emma seemed contrite as she continued, "Julie, I'm so sorry. A confusion exists here. I took the dessert by mistake to the incorrect house. I had assumed the party would be tomorrow." My heart fell. Emma, Joyce's celebration lasts 1 hour. How could this go? Though I attempted to keep cool, panic was starting to seep in. "I am aware. I apologize so much. I'll sort things out," she said. Her voice seemed disorganized, but I wasn't sure whether she truly realized this was serious. Frustrated and overburdened, I hung off the line. Joyce was attentively observing me, her large, inquisitive eyes ablaze with anxiety. She said softly, "Mommy, what about my cake?" I bent down before her, trying to smile. "Honey, there's a small issue here, but you know what? We will create a better cake, a handmade unicorn cake, and what do you suppose?" Her face sprang alive right away. "Really? We could create a unicorn cake, Mommy?" "Indeed, we can," I answered, my heart surging with will. "And it will be the most magical unicorn cake ever." Joyce's enthusiasm gave me a lift. We gathered the components together and started working. Though it wasn't what we had in mind, I came to see that occasionally the best memories result from unanticipated events. Joyce would never forget her birthday as it was going to be. Her enthusiasm made me smile, my heart softening. The kitchen became our small bakery very fast. Flour scattered around. Laughing echoed around the walls as eggs cracked with sloppy accuracy. We combined, poured, mixed, baked side by side. Not too long, sticky batter covered our hands and faces. Together, we created what could only be called a lopsided but really lovely unicorn cake. It was especially ours as we covered it with homemade frosting and an arbitrary mix of sprinkles. My original concerns crept back in as the visitors started to show up. Would life be good without the original cake? But Joyce's enthusiasm drew me out of my head. "Mom, just look at our cake." Joyce happily displayed our work. "Julie, this is really wonderful. How do you have managed this?" One of the mothers, Nicole, questioned, quite visibly impressed. Feeling a surge of pride, I smiled and said, "It took a little creativity and a lot of love." The compliments never stopped coming. "This cake looks really lovely." Another attendee added, "You should consider opening a baking company." Seeing Joyce blossom with pride as her friends praised the cake made my heart expand. She no longer carried any hint of her past disappointment. She laughed, played, and soaked in every moment as the center of attention. It was in that moment that I realized something important. No matter what Emma had intended, she couldn't take away the happiness of this day. The party turned out to be a hit. Joyce's smile stretched from ear to ear as she blew out her candles, making her birthday wish. Her friends cheered and clapped. their faces glowing with joy. The house was filled with the sound of laughter, singing, and happy chatter. It was beautiful chaos, and I wouldn't have changed a thing. As the party wound down and the last of the guests left, Joyce wrapped her arms around me tightly. "This was the best birthday ever, Mommy. I love you so much," she said, her voice filled with pure joy. "I love you too, sweetheart, more than anything in the world," I whispered, hugging her close. Later that evening, once the house was quiet and Joy was asleep, I sat in the living room with a cup of tea. I reflected on the day, feeling both triumph and unease. The party had been a success, but Emma's actions nagged at me. Her apology had felt insincere, and I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her mix-up than she was letting on. This wasn't over. I needed to get to the bottom of what had really happened to protect Joyce from any harm Emma might cause in the future. This was just the beginning of my journey. Stay tuned for Chapter 2, where I begin to uncover the truth behind Emma's actions. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow along as the story unfolds. I started by casually bringing up the cake incident with Joyce and Shirley during one of our chats. I mentioned it in passing, hoping to learn more. "Oh, Emma was so proud of getting that cake for Janet," Shirley said with a cheerful tone. "She's been planning it for weeks." My heart sank. Her words hit me like a brick. This wasn't a simple mistake. It was deliberate. Emma hadn't mixed up the dates. She had intentionally chosen to prioritize Janet over Joyce. I felt a wave of anger and sadness, but I knew I couldn't let my emotions take over. I needed to approach this carefully. Over the next few days, I started paying close attention to Emma's behavior around Joyce and Janet. The difference was clear and undeniable. Emma doted on Janet, showering her with affection and attention. Meanwhile, Joyce received far less, almost like she was an afterthought. It hurt to watch. One evening, as I was tucking Joyce into bed, she asked me a question that broke my heart. "Mommy, why doesn't Grandma like playing with me as much?" I hugged her tightly, trying to hide my own pain. "She loves you, sweetie," I said softly. "She just chose it in a different way." But deep down, I felt anger and sadness boiling inside me. It wasn't just favoritism, it was emotional harm, and I couldn't let it continue. Joyce deserved to feel loved and valued, not overlooked. I decided I needed to confront Emma, but I wanted to be prepared. Over the following weeks, I started documenting everything I noticed. I wrote down dates, times, specific examples of favoritism, and even snippets of conversations that revealed her bias. My goal wasn't just to call Emma out, but to make her see the impact of her actions. One day, I ran into Emma at the grocery store. She greeted me warmly, but I could feel a tinge of awkwardness in her tone. "Hi, Emma," I said, keeping my voice steady. "We need to talk about something important. It's about the kids." She looked surprised. "Oh, what about them?" she asked, feigning innocence. "Not here," I said firmly. "Let's meet for coffee next week." Emma hesitated, then nodded. "All right, Julie, if you insist," she replied, her expression unreadable. As the day of our meeting approached, I felt a mix of anxiety and determination. I knew the confrontation wouldn't be easy, but it was necessary. Joyce's happiness and emotional well-being were my top priorities, and I couldn't ignore Emma's behavior any longer. Finally, the day arrived. We met at a small cafe, the air between us heavy with tension. "So, what's this about?" Emma asked casually, though her eyes seemed wary. "It's about Joyce and Janet," I said, my voice calm but firm. "Noticed how differently you treat them, and it's not fair to Joyce." "What are you implying, Julie?" Emma's voice sharpened, defensive and guarded. The conversation was just beginning, but I was ready to stand my ground. "I'm not implying anything, Emma," I said firmly. "I've seen it. The cake incident is just one example. Why, Emma? Why do you favor Janet over Joyce?" Emma hesitated, her confident demeanor faltering. "It's complicated, Julie. You wouldn't understand." I leaned forward, my voice steady but filled with emotion. "I need to understand, Emma. Joyce is your granddaughter, too. She deserves the same love and care that Janet gets." The air between us grew heavy with tension. Emma shifted uncomfortably in her seat, alternating between vague excuses and outright denial. She tried to dismiss my concerns, but I stood my ground. I made it clear that her behavior wasn't just unfair, it was hurtful, and it needed to change. After what felt like an eternity of back and forth, I finally left the cafe, a swirl of emotions following me home. The confrontation had been exhausting, but I knew it was necessary. I had stood up for my daughter, and that's what mattered most. Now it was up to Emma to reflect on her actions and decide what kind of relationship she wanted to have with Joyce. Deep down, though, I knew this was only the beginning of a long and difficult journey. The following weekend, our family gathered for the annual reunion. The house was filled with laughter, the smell of delicious food, and the sound of cousins playing. On the surface, it was a happy, festive occasion, but inside I was a bundle of nerves. I knew this was another chance to address the situation, but I wasn't sure how it would go. As I moved through the crowd, making small talk with relatives, my eyes kept drifting toward Emma. She was chatting and laughing, her carefree demeanor almost infuriating. It strengthened my resolve. I couldn't let this continue. Finally, I saw my chance. Emma was alone, refilling her drink in the kitchen. I took a deep breath and approached her. "Emma, can we talk in private?" I asked. She looked surprised but nodded, following me to a quieter corner of the room. "I need to talk to you about Joyce and Janet," I began. "I've noticed, and not just noticed, I've seen how differently you treat them. It's not fair, Emma." Emma's face hardened. "You're imagining things, Julie. This is ridiculous." "I'm not imagining anything," I replied, my voice steady. "And it's not just me who's noticed. Other people have too. Your favoritism is hurting Joyce, and I won't allow it to continue." Emma crossed her arms defensively. "You're overreacting." "No, I'm not," I said, my frustration rising. "I've watched how you dote on Janet and barely acknowledge Joyce. It's clear as day, and it's not okay." The conversation grew heated. Emma swung between denial and weak justifications, but I didn't back down. I calmly presented the evidence I had gathered, specific moments and instances that couldn't be dismissed. As our voices rose, a few family members began to notice, quietly drifting closer to listen. I turned to Emma one last time. "This has to stop, Emma. You're playing favorites, and it's damaging. Joyce deserves better." Finally, Emma's confident facade cracked. She sighed heavily, her shoulders slumping. "All right, maybe," she began, her voice trailing off. For the first time, I saw a flicker of regret in her eyes. "I've been more attentive to Janet because she needs extra support," Emma finally admitted, her voice faltering. "That's no excuse to neglect Joyce," I replied firmly. "She's your granddaughter, too. She deserves just as much love and attention as Janet does." The room had fallen silent. Family members who had initially been oblivious to the conversation were now intently listening. Emma glanced around, realizing the weight of the moment and how exposed she had become. I didn't mean to hurt anyone," she stammered, her voice shaky. "It's not just about what you meant, Emma," I said calmly but firmly. "It's about what your actions have done. Intentions don't erase the impact, and Joyce has been affected by this." Emma tried to apologize, offering weak excuses and vague justifications, but the damage was already done. The truth was out, and there was no going back. As the conversation ended, the room buzzed with whispers and surprised expressions. It was clear that the family saw Emma differently now. In the days that followed, the family dynamic shifted. Emma, once seen as a charming and influential matriarch, found herself more isolated. Her usual charisma couldn't cover up what had been revealed. Family members were polite but distant, treating her with a new wariness. On the other hand, I noticed a change in how they treated me. There was a newfound respect and acknowledgement of the courage it took to stand up for Joyce. Joyce, blissfully unaware of the deeper details, seemed happier and more at ease. She laughed more freely, played more confidently, and radiated joy in ways I hadn't seen in a long time. That was all that truly mattered to me. The confrontation had been hard, but it opened the family's eyes to Emma's behavior and its consequences. It was a turning point, a moment that I hoped would lead to a healthier and more honest family dynamic in the future. As life moved forward, significant changes came into my own life. My career as a graphic designer flourished with newfound creativity and confidence. My work began to attract more attention. Clients were thrilled with my designs, leading to referrals and exciting new opportunities. The recognition was rewarding, but the most important change was the happiness Joyce and I found in our daily lives. Our bond grew even stronger, and our home was filled with laughter and love. One evening, Joyce sat scrolling through my social media feed, her eyes wide with excitement. "Mom, you're the coolest. Look at all these people loving your designs," she exclaimed. I smiled, my heart swelling with pride. "We make a great team, don't we, sweetie? Together we can do anything." Meanwhile, Emma's situation continued to evolve in a starkly different direction. The family had grown cold toward her. Invitations to events were politely declined, and her attempts to organize gatherings went largely ignored. Her calls and messages often went unanswered, and her influence within the family had all but vanished. At a family barbecue, Emma stood off to the side, her usual confident presence replaced by quiet isolation. It was clear that the family had changed, and so had I. Joyce and I were building a life filled with love, positivity, and hope, leaving behind the shadows of favoritism and pain. I saw firsthand how Emma's position in the family had changed. She tried to join conversations and activities at gatherings, but her efforts were met with polite nods and quick excuses to leave. The days when people laughed at her jokes or sought her advice were gone. Now family members exchanged uneasy glances when she was around and found reasons to drift away. Did you see how Aunt Emma was practically ignored when she tried to join the card game? One of my cousins whispered to me during a family event. "Yeah, it's sad," I replied, feeling a mix of vindication and sadness. But after what happened with Joyce and everything else, people are finally seeing her true colors. The shift in how the family treated me was just as noticeable. I was no longer just Emma's daughter-in-law. I was now seen as a strong, independent woman who stood up for her child. People began to value my opinions and seek my company, a stark contrast to Emma's growing isolation. As the family dynamics continued to evolve, Joyce's next birthday approached. I was determined to make it a joyful, drama-free celebration. I planned a small, cozy party at home with just her closest friends. The house was filled with laughter, smiles, and the kind of happiness that had been missing in the chaos of the previous year. "This is the best birthday ever, Mom. You're the best," Joyce exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with pure joy. Watching her surrounded by her friends, I felt an overwhelming sense of pride and relief. We had faced difficult times and come out stronger. That evening, Joyce was soundly sleeping when the guests left, so I sat by myself in the silent living room. I considered the previous year and all we had gone through. Though it had been one of the toughest things I have ever done, standing up to Emma has opened Joyce and me a better life. We might at last breathe freely and really flourish without the weight of manipulation and partiality hovering over us. The path has been one of learning, empowerment, and regaining our strength. My phone buzzed as I sat here considering things. "Emma sent this. I realize I've lost so much. I apologize for everything. Perhaps we might talk sometime." When I read her remarks, I experienced a range of feelings: justice, grief, even a tiny sliver of hope. Seeing her confront the results of her actions was satisfying, but there was also loss for the fragile relationship. I felt rather calm as I turned out the lights and got into bed. Together, Joyce and I had conquered much. Our relationship had only become closer. Our trip was evidence of tenacity, the strength of speaking up for what is right, and the unwavering love between a mother and her daughter. Even though this chapter of our life was drawing to a conclusion, it left me with much future hope. How do you view Julie's handling of the Emma matter? Do you think she acted appropriately in confronting the favoritism and defending Joyce? Could she have handled it differently? Do you believe her behavior was reasonable given the situation? This narrative delves deeply into family dynamics and the difficult decisions we occasionally must make for the people we love. Although facing these problems cannot always be simple, standing up for what is right can lead to actual transformation. Reading your remarks here would be great. In a like circumstance, how would you have managed it? Let's begin a discussion. Should you have fun reading the narrative and the road we have traveled, kindly click the like button and register for the channel. Your contribution is deeply valued and enables us to keep sharing tales like this one. We appreciate you viewing and accompanying our trip today. Remember, you are never alone in negotiating life's difficulties. Stay tuned for more moving tales.